The epic showdown, God's battle for love in ancient Egypt. What would you do if you found out your lover was cheating on you? If you're anything like me, you'd probably confront them and demand an explanation. But what if the cheater was a god? Well, then you'd probably need to assemble an army and start a war. Welcome to my channel. And today, let's find out how it must have felt to be in love with a god. The tale begins in ancient Egypt. Here, the pharaoh's daughter, the beautiful princess. Nephti had fallen head over heels for a mortal man named Kimmer. Now, this wouldn't have been much of a problem except for one small detail. Kimmer was already promised to another. The goddess Hathor, who'd chosen him as her consort, was furious when she heard about the princess's infatuation. Why would her human pet choose some lowly prince over her? To teach him a lesson, she turned him into an ibis bird and sent him away, but even that didn't cool down the princess's burning desire. She wanted Kimmer back, no matter his form. As days passed, the princess grew more and more desperate, until one day she decided enough was enough. She went straight to Ra, the sun god, and asked him to help her win back her love. In return, she promised to give him half of her inheritance. "Just turn me into a cat," she told him, "and I'll find him." So Ra waved his magic wand, and poof, the princess became a cat. Then she set off to find her man. Meanwhile, after being dumped by the princess, Kim had gone to live with some friends in the marshes of the delta. When Nephti showed up, he was taken aback. Not only did he still love the princess, but cats were also sacred to the goddess he had offended, Hathor. He knew that if she saw him with the princess, she'd turn him back into an ibis just to teach him a lesson. And so, to protect himself from Hathor, Kimor did something drastic. He jumped into a nearby bakery and hid inside a loaf of bread. Now, if you've ever baked bread before, you know there's a lot of waiting involved, especially back in the olden times. And while our hero waited for his bread to rise, we'll shift our focus to the goddess Hathor. After hearing about Nefertiti's transformation, she grew suspicious that the princess was up to some mischief. She flew down from the heavens to the bakery and peeked inside the loaves of bread to see if her beloved was hiding there. But surprise, surprise, he wasn't. Instead, she found the princess fast asleep inside one of the loaves. When Hathor saw Nefertiti, she was furious. How dare she invade her sacred space and sneak around like a commoner? She yanked the princess out of her bread-induced slumber and demanded answers. "Why are you here?" she asked. Nephti, still half asleep, could only respond, "I came to look for my darling Kimmer. Tell me where he is so I can be with him again." Now, this is where things get a little messy, depending on the version of the story you read. One of two things happened next. In some versions, the goddesses, who were usually best friends, got into a huge fight. They argued for 8 days straight, each convinced that she was right. But eventually they agreed to let Ra decide their fate. They all went to see the sun god, and he proposed a challenge. Whoever completed it would win. In other versions, Ra didn't propose a challenge. He simply declared that Nephthys had won. Hathor couldn't accept defeat, so she left the room fuming and called for backup. Soon all the major Egyptian deities were present. Anubis, the god of the dead, was there, as was Thoth, the god of wisdom, and Mafdet, the cat goddess. All of them sided with Hathor, probably because she offered them yummy cow carcasses as bribes. On the other hand, Nephthys wasn't alone. She had some powerful allies of her own, including Bastet, the protector of women and children, and Wepwat, the god of the hunt. With both sides ready to rumble, Ra let the battle commence. First, Nephthys unleashed her animal army. Hawks, snakes, and scorpions attacked the members of Team Hathor, who retaliated by summoning a swarm of poisonous insects. But those pesky bugs were no match for Wepwat. He chased them away with ease and even managed to capture some as trophies. Meanwhile, Anubis tried to scare the living daylight out of the princess, but she just laughed at his spooky attempts. Even when he summoned mummies and skeletons, she remained unfazed. At this point, Anubis gave up on scaring her and pulled out his secret weapon. He invoked a curse that caused anyone who witnessed the spectacle to forget everything they'd seen and heard. But luckily for Nephthys, she wasn't affected by it. She was immune to any spells cast by her brother Anubis. After all, they were siblings. But Nephthys didn't want to rely on her immunity. She asked Thoth, the moon god, for help, and he obliged by turning the battlefield into a giant hourglass. Time stood still and nobody could move, not even Anubis. Then Nephthys took advantage of her freedom and captured Anubis' heart. She tore it out of his chest and tossed it into the river Nile, trapping him forever at this point. The battle seemed hopeless for Team Hathor, but Mafdet saved the day. She swooped down from the sky and ripped out Nephthys' heart. Just when it seemed like Nephthys would lose, Batset jumped in front of Mafdet and sacrificed herself. This act of selflessness bought enough time for Ra to appear and restore order. Now, depending on which version you ask, there are two possible endings. In one version, Ra simply restores everyone back to their original forms, and the other gods go back to their daily routines. But in another version, things wrap up a little differently. Ra turns Nephthys and Hathor into two cows, and the other gods become bulls. The humans in the area don't see this as a punishment, though, because they think it's an honor to be related to a god. You might be wondering, why did I put this story in the horror section if it has a happy ending? Well, I'm not talking about the version with the cows. In that one, I guess everybody lived happily ever after. But in the other version, Kimmer ends up dying. Let me explain. When Ra restored everybody to their human forms, he also brought King Carter back to life. That's because Ra was super fond of the king. He was the one who made him immortal after all. But while Kimmer's body was restored, his soul remained in the Duat, the underworld. You see, Anubis had trapped his soul there when he invoked his curse. And since Kimmer's body had already been cremated, there was no way to bring him back without breaking the laws of the universe. Yeah, even Ra wasn't powerful enough to break those rules. To make matters worse, Kimmer's fate was sealed the moment he allowed Nephthys to turn him into an ibis. Once a god interfered in your life, your fate was sealed. It didn't matter if you were a god yourself or just a mere mortal. And so Kimmer remains stuck between the realms of the living and the dead, unable to move on or return to his old life. The worst part, Nephthys never even realized what had happened to him. She believed that Ra had restored him to his human form and that he was finally hers. So what's the moral of the story? Don't mess with gods, especially when they're in love. It's never a good idea to get between two deities who are head over heels for each other. The only exception, perhaps, is if you're as powerful as Ra. But now it's time to ask you a question. Do you think Hathor was right to be furious? After all, Nephthys had broken the agreement by turning Kimmer into an ibis. Or do you think Nephthys was justified in wanting her true love back? Let us know your thoughts. Thanks for tuning in and watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider supporting us. It helps us continue making awesome videos about mythology and folklore from around the world. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload. Till next time, stay safe and remember, John shot first.